Hey everybody, Mr. Grove here. Today we're going to talk about crustaceans. And so crustaceans are going to be members of the phylum Arthropoda, and they are oftentimes kind of referred to as the insect of the sea. So they can, but they're not insects though, so that is important to kind of denote. They can be freshwater or they can be saltwater. They can be large or small. The largest crustaceans are really some of the spider crabs or king crabs, so kind of in that 8 to 10 foot range probably. So typically relatively small. And then the larval form of crustaceans are going to be what's called a nauplius. And so that'd be this thing down here. And this is going to be not really microscopic. You could see it with the naked eye, barely. But if you had a nice little 4-power lens, it would be a lot more visible. But that's the nauplius for the larval form for the crustaceans. So these are several crustaceans that we would see. So crab, shrimp, daphnia, roly-polies, barnacles. But what's not a crustacean that is commonly thought of to be is going to be the horseshoe crab. And so we kind of specifically want to bring that out, that it's technically not. If we're really playing tech, that would be officially more closely related to the arachnids. It's kind of on its own, but it would be more closely an arachnid than it would be a crustacean. So moving on, some of the things you can tell between insects and crustaceans. So appendages at the end, they're branched, like they got 2 little toes. Insects would be unbranched. 2 pairs of antennae, 1 pair for insects. 3 chewing jaws for the crustaceans, 1 pair for the insects. Our appendages are going to be on the cephalothorax and the abdomen, whereas we'd have them on the head and the thorax for insects. And probably one of the big ones is the respiration system. So gills for our crustaceans, even the terrestrial ones, need to have moist environments. And then this tracheal system that has the tubes through the spiracles that go into the exoskeleton is going to be how the insects will get their respiratory. Some land crustaceans, one of the most common is the roly-poly, and it goes by lots of different names: pillbugs, sowbugs, roly-polies, and a couple of others would be like sand fleas and some land crabs. But they, again, they're terrestrial, but they need to be in some kind of moist, close to water environments. As far as a specific order that we're probably most used to, and that's going to be the decapods. And so if we go through the classification, so animal kingdom, phylum Arthropoda, subphylum Crustacea, and then the class is Malacostraca, and then order Decapod. So when we dissect that word, pod means foot, deca means 10, so 10 feet. So these guys would have 10 legs. This is going to be our shrimp, lobster, crayfish, crabs. We got the head and the thorax fused together to form a cephalothorax. That carapace is going to be kind of this part on the back here, and that's what you have to peel off if you're eating some crayfish. The swimmerets are going to be underneath in the abdomen. And that's going to be used for reproduction, for swimming. That's where the female will kind of brood her eggs. And this telson and uropod are these kind of big fan-like tails, and that's going to be used for swimming. And so the natural muscular movement for crawdads is going to allow them to swim backwards. And so if you've ever tried to catch a crawdad, you know that they tend to want to swim backwards. But that's the common ones that we're used to, the decapods. Some other crustaceans that are kind of small but yet mighty as they're part of the food chain. So fairy shrimp, krill, daphnia, ostracods, copepods. So you've probably heard of some of these before, and they are kind of like that nauplius, kind of mostly microscopic. You could barely see them, but with a small microscope lens, they'd be very visible. Barnacles are a crustacean, and they're kind of a strange alien versus predator looking thing. But they form this calcified shell that attaches to a surface, and then they relatively stay sessile. So one of the few sessile crustaceans. A real problem on like boats and docks and things. They get on there and it's very difficult to get them off. So, but those are some other common crustaceans that we would see. And so that pretty much should wrap us up, and hope that was helpful.